everything's coming up greener.
Here's Harold Matthews. He is
The Garden Doctor. The Garden Doctor.
Hello, Connorsville and surrounding area, because we are branching out, you know.
Wow.
We just heard from people that were all the way down in that, where's that place? Laurel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's another part of the state, right?
Somewhere south of us.
Not too far.
No, not too terrible far, but you know, I ran into somebody up at the grocery store and they wanted me to mention their name on the television. Do not ever ask me to remember your name, because that's not going to happen.
No, that's why he
So,
calls me Honey. Doesn't know my name.
That's right. You were a brunette. You stood about the same height as my wife, and you were from Laurel, and that's about all I can tell you. So hi, how you been?
Oh, that was real nice of you.
And we want to say hi to the relative of the Belts. You know, this.
But I can't remember her first name either. She was
very nice to me today.
Nurse at your doctor's office.
And I want to apologize right off the bat. There's still one, actually there's two people that were on the list for me to come out and visit their home. And I am still going to be there, but I've had some health issues that have taken precedent here in the last couple of months. And still not quite get it figured out and know what to do. And I kind of run out of steam real quick and have some issues that I'd like to get rid of before I do much traveling around. So I will get to you, but that's why I'm retired, because
Creeping in your picture
I'm
here.
just not in the best of conditions. Okay, we want to talk about some things that have to do with the fall. People don't go to the nurseries in the fall as much as they used to.
Why is that?
When I was in the nursery business in Indianapolis, this has been eons ago.
Yeah, a long
back
time
in
ago.
the 70s, the
Still in
people
your
would
picture.
visit the nursery in the fall for large trees and shrubs, and they would put in the rest of their perennials, and of course they would get some mums from us and so forth. But the trees, it was big business. People don't think about shrubbery in the fall as much as they used to, and trees, but it actually is one of the better times to plant, because if you put them in now through November, December, you're benefiting from the fall rains, you're benefiting from the snowfall through the winter, which is nitrogen. It's a lot of nutrients that go into the soil, plus the water from the evaporation and of the snow. And then you go into the spring and you have all of the spring rains. So the plants get thoroughly watered in. They get a chance to get some root structure going in the wintertime. There is still growth that goes on below the surface. And there's many things that happen during the fall and the winter and the early spring that you can take advantage of. So it's a good time to go. Another thing too, you'll find that there's a lot of plants that are at the nurseries that are in bloom right now that you do not have in your yard, because one of the things that is lacking in most people's yards is fall color. So that's why they buy the mums and they stick the mums in. However, the mums don't come back. We had that as one of the big questions.
Yes,
remember?
we did. Well, somebody asked why their mums were not coming back, yet their mothers, for some reason, come back year after year.
Go dig up your mums.
Is that the variety, or?
Dig them up. It is the variety. They're probably a garden mum. They were probably purchased in the spring. We used to sell perennial garden mums in the spring and the early summer, just like you would any of the perennials and annuals. And then it had all summer to grow, and you were told, do not let it bloom. Mow it off, cut it off, whatever, until after the 15th of July. Well, actually, they said the 4th of July, but the 4th to the 15th of July. Then after that, allow it to grow, and it'll bloom in the fall. And it has established a full root structure so that it can come back. Now, I have heard, and I've never tried this. I probably should have. I really should have, but I have not. I have been told that if you cut off, you buy a mum, beautiful blossom on top, gorgeous thing, cut it right off, stick it in the ground, then it has a better chance of coming back than if you leave it blooming. But
that makes no sense at all, because you have
I didn't say it made any
100%.
sense.
You have 100% chance of it being pretty right now.
There you go.
till you cut it off.
There you go.
And you're buying a mum to cut it off for a possibility that it'll come back next year. That makes no sense
Well,
at all.
and there are, if you want a mum to come back, I would strongly recommend when you go to a place where they grow them. We used to go out to McDivitt's and get our mums. So they don't grow the mums anymore. I don't
Oh,
know
they're
if
not doing that at all?
Well, I don't know if they did this year, but they didn't for a couple of years because they were traveling out to see their youngins hither and yon. And but if you asked them and you said, "Look, I want the mum that is the most likely to return," they would point out one or two of the mums that are more likely than the others, because certain varieties do have a tendency to return, but very, very few of them. Now there are other classifications of mums, garden mums, and they are quite hardy. We've got 3 in our yard. They're all about the same color, though. There's no real diversity in the color of the ones that are in our yard. Or perhaps I've pulled up the other ones. I don't know. I weed things that shouldn't be weeded.
And I'm famous for doing the same. I know.
I was taking the blame, but actually.
I know. That was your way of really blaming me, wasn't
So
it?
I
Okay.
apologize again for not getting to the 2 that I will get to you here.
Well, I feel
this
terrible
week.
because I am very ill prepared for tonight's show.
Well, we
just
are, a little bit,
because
yeah.
of everything we've had going on, but we did have some questions, so we want to make sure that we do get to those questions. And
Oh
we
yeah,
might
and
as
this
well
is a live
start right
show,
off.
so call in. If you have a
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
Give
We're
us a
here.
holler. Yeah, and please, if you want to improve your health, get apple cider. Apple cider is definitely.
I have a book that Ron Kramer, a friend of mine from way back, gave me, and it's all the health benefits of vinegar.
Cider
and
vinegar.
Everything from drinking vinegar to using it on rashes and just one thing after
Cider
another. It was
vinegar.
really quite interesting. I still have that book
and
somewhere.
let me tell you, they still profess the same thing.
That's true.
Cider vinegar, a little honey.
Well, Dr. Oz has, and you know how I love my Oz.
Dr. Oz is got it going.
He's awesome.
We got to be on his show. We got to call him. We give him all kinds of plugs. He hasn't called us.
No,
You
he
know?
hasn't.
I'm going to have to call him. Let's send him an email.
All right, well, let's
What you
start
got?
with a couple of questions.
Well, then, I'm waiting.
All right, somebody has asked me why their burning bushes are not turning red.
They're probably not in the light, and they probably either have too much moisture or not enough.
Well, don't
moisture.
tell me, tell them.
Oh, there we go. If they don't have full light, if they're not in the south or east-west, if they're where they are shaded by a tree or something like that, then you normally don't get the full color that you will if they are on the south side and fully exposed to the light. Moisture has something to do with it also. Now, if the intensity of the red is not what it should be, you might need some iron. Just put some iron on there, and that'll take care of that. But probably the reason that others are and yours are not, if you just look at where they're placed and how they're planted and so forth, you'll see why those are red and yours are not as much. Yes.
All right, well, let's get right to it. Another question was, is it too late to sow my lawn with grass seed? And also, what else can be done for your lawn right now?
Oh, what? Oh,
About sowing grass seed in
yeah,
the lawn,
okay.
and what else should be added? I guess they mean like weed and feed or fertilizer.
It is not too late, or it is too late, and it's also too early. Your grass seed right now would not have time to develop a full root structure and
before it
3
got
frond
cold.
on
Okay.
top, 3 leaves. And without the 3 on top, then it doesn't have enough roots down below to winter it over.
Gotcha.
So it'll turn green, it'll look gorgeous, and then it'll just die out. If you don't have a lawn in yet, I would sow a lawn under the snow. Now that's a little tricky to do, but it's in your best interest to do it this way, and that is to wait until it's much colder and it looks like the snow is going to stay for a while. You've got a snowstorm coming, go out there and spread your grass seed, and don't put it on too heavy. Read the directions very, very
Wait a minute,
carefully.
spread the grass seed on the snow?
Under the snow, before the snow falls.
Oh, I was going to say, how are you going to lift up the snow?
It's a little tricky. I told you it's tricky.
I guess so.
So you spread the grass seed, and you want it to be frozen because that's what nature does with grass seed. It freezes it, cracks it. So, and when Mother Nature throws the grass seed about the under the snow as well, and then the snow carries it down in as it melts and brings it down through to the into the soil. You don't want grass seed too deep, and then in the spring when it's the appropriate time, it will grow.
Okay, that sounds
so it's
interesting.
too late
To actually get it growing before winter,
Right,
but
and
it's
it's too
okay
early.
to sow it later in the spring.
Right, and the question was, what do you do to the lawn? This time of the year, you can build some root structure, but I don't like to fertilize. Some people do. They like to fertilize to keep it green and let it go right on through the fall. But the more upper growth you have when it's getting frozen, the more damage that is done to the foliage. I'm not a big supporter, a proponent of the, putting a lot of nitrogen on in the fall. I like to put stuff for the root structure and the stem, the phosphorus, the potash, the iron, copper, zinc, magnesium, trace elements, especially iron. I like to put iron on in the fall. That
Well,
keeps
would
it
this
green.
be a good time? I know you're always a proponent of mowing your grass high. Would this be a better time to mow it shorter?
The
Or
only
irrelevant?
time, if you really want to mow your lawn a lot, this is the time to do it. Get a mulcher. As the leaves fall before they build up, mow and mulch. Mow and mulch. Don't pick up anything. Just mow and mulch until it gets so heavy that it's going to suffocate the lawn. And the benefit of that is tremendous
All those
because
goodies
all of
just-
that
yeah.
compost, you'll create a new layer on top of your soil. You just can't have it do too much.
Right, okay.
So what we usually do is the reverse. Actually, we rake off the first
Mm-hmm.
big fall or two falls of foliage, and then we mow the last 3 or 4.
Man, I'm tired. That's a lot of work already.
But mulching that stuff up and then blowing it back on if you're, of that. If you've got that much energy,
Yeah,
you can do it that way.
exactly.
But the lawn right now could also have lime applied to it. Lime is not something that, my pH is off, I got some moss, so I throw some lime and I'm done. That's not how it works. You got to put a little lime on, then add some more lime. So you put some on in the spring, you put some on in the fall, you check your pH again, and it will gradually come up, and then you have to maintain it there. So you'll probably put lime on 3 times to bring the pH up to where it should be. Then you're going to maintain it by every other year or perhaps every 3rd year, putting on half as much lime every 3 years, and to maintain it right where it should be for the optimal growth of the grass. Lime is as important, if not more important, than any fertilizer you could put on, because without the balance of the pH, nothing else can work right. Weed killers can't work right, fertilizer can't work right, grass seed can't grow right. Nothing works right in a lawn. Now, in nature, things will still work because Mother Nature hates a void. So if you leave the ground bare, something will grow there, a weed, moss, whatever, will grow there, whatever is appropriate for that pH. But pH alone changes the whole environment of the world and the earth, your particular yard. So now is the time to check your pH. Another question that was related to that.
Yes, there was a question about what you can do in the garden now that the garden has gone by, and what can you do? Should you rake up and get rid of all your old
garden's
plants?
not
and
gone
debris?
by.
Well, most of it has gone by, and I had asked you, usually we put in a later set of cucumbers and that type of thing, and we haven't really done that this year.
We've got some tomatoes coming on.
Well, yeah, there's some. There is
Yeah.
a few. But I had asked you, is it too late for a late garden? And you said yes, but it's not too late for a late garden. So what does that mean?
She's got Swiss chard and
Kale still.
Kale, some
Yes.
beautiful kale. I have harvested kale in the snow, and it's been fantastic. And Swiss chard is not quite as tough, but
it's
almost.
still beautiful, though. Oh, man.
But the kale, it just gets better the colder it gets. Yes, there are some things you can still plant. Lettuce, you still have plenty of time, and lettuce loves cold weather. If you had one of those little domes, which are very inexpensive to get, you can grow lettuce all the way through until the ground freezes. There's some things you can put in. It's too late to grow fall cabbage, but I think you still have time for turnips.
Okay.
And turnips, there used to be a gentleman down in our direction down there on 121. I believe that's where he was. He might have been out by the Triangle, that grew a whole backyard of turnips.
Oh,
and
wow.
he just gave them away.
Oh.
Yeah, he was. It was down below us. It's right down there on the bend, on 121, right on the bend. He used to come into Neil's when I had Neil's Seed and Landscape up there on Indiana Avenue, and he would buy a couple of pounds of turnip seeds, and he did this every year for year after year after year.
Isn't that something?
Wonderful, wonderful individual, and he would give them away. Now, of course, people don't even know what a turnip is, for crying out loud. I told her to get out and get me
All
some
right.
parsnips.
Well, this was a long time ago.
Parsnip. Oh,
Well, it's a good
had
thing.
to go
they-
ask the clerk.
I know they
What
had
is a
pictures.
parsnip?
They had pictures, so I knew what to
For
get.
crying out loud. The garden. Mrs. Garden Doctor doesn't know what a parsnip
Well,
is.
thank God they had pictures, so I could get
I reckon.
turnips and.
Hey, what did I go to get? I went and got something for my grandchildren. They asked me to get, and I didn't know how to open it.
Oh yeah, the pomegranate.
Yeah.
For-
Go give me a pomegranate, Papa. It's their vegan.
Well, you didn't know what a
Organic.
mango was. Everybody here
No, it's
calls
not a mango.
calls a green pepper a mango, which it is not. A mango is a tropical fruit. And again, Ron Kramer, he says, "Well, you got any mangoes out in your garden?" I said, "Well, you can't grow that here. That's a tropical fruit." And he said, "What the hell are you talking about?" You know, you know. So-
Ron Kramer was a piece of work.
Yeah, he was
Yes,
a good guy. Somebody had asked a question: when do you plant the big round purple globe blooming bulb? I think it says.
Yeah, and I think from
is
that,
that?
description, they're talking about the allium, which is in the onion family. You plant it in the fall or the early spring. Any bulb that you can buy now, if you want a specific color, if you want a certain type of daffodil, which I highly recommend, or jonquils, or now I don't go in for tulips. Don't have
I like
much.
'em.
I don't have much use for tulips at
But
all.
nothing like says spring when you go out and see the daffodils popping
no,
up. I know.
crocus
I love
coming
'em.
through the snow. That's what says spring right
Ah.
there. Just popping right up through the snow. As a matter of fact, they call them snowdrops. Now is when you buy them, because the selection of what you want is the best now. But don't plant them now. It's too early, and they might actually grow, and then you'd really be in trouble. You do not want them to grow early in the fall. So buy them now for selection. If you're just trying this out and you want to naturalize a big area and you're on a budget, then wait until the clearance, because they have some fantastic sellouts at some of the bigger box stores. And just watch very carefully, because once they go on sale, there's a lot of people doing this, and they will, like me, and they will grab them up. I try to grab them up for my friends, and because the big alliums are quite expensive, but they're worth it. They produce a blossom.
Yeah,
it's a
I've
big,
seen that.
giant,
They're very
purple
impressive.
blossom, and they're all different colors. Some of them are shaped like stars. There's white ones. There's purple ones. There's a lot of new ones, and they're in catalogs. More available than they are anywhere else. You can get those bulb catalogs, you know, Beck's and all different ones. And now is the time to order the catalogs, look on the internet, do your ordering, but don't plant them until you get up around Thanksgiving. That's the time you put them in the ground, mulch over them, put some bone meal in with them. Always shake them in baby powder. Put the bulb in a bag, shake it up with baby powder, and put bone meal down, because it needs nutrients that are different than what all other plants need. And that bone meal is vitally important. But the baby powder keeps away the mice, the rodents, the squirrels. They hate that stuff. They get anywhere near it and sniff it. They cough and gag, and you just hear them cussing all the way across the yard.
Is that so?
Now, you had asked about what to do with the garden, and we were talking about Swiss chard and got a little
Oh,
distracted there.
right. Okay.
Now is the time to really make a difference in your garden for next year. If you had a major issue, find out what that was. Hopefully you took a picture, or you have a sample or something. Go down to the extension office, go research, go look it up on the internet, find out what the problem was, and address that problem now to take care of it for next year. For example, if you have this garden, you can't move the garden anywhere else, and you've just been having terrible luck with it, every plant you grow has got a disease, insects are riddling things. There are soil saturations that you can use, soil soaks, that you mix them up, you pour it on the ground, it soaks down in a certain depth, and it wipes out disease and insects down to a foot or so.
And that's
Now,
something you wouldn't want to do when you're actually growing the vegetables next spring.
Right.
It's something you want to do
want
now
to get that
when it's
done
vacant.
now. And then another way to do it, of course, I've mentioned this before on the show, is the greenhouse effect, where you just take the clear plastic, put it out over the top of the ground, prop it up in the middle so that the water can run off. and you're creating a greenhouse effect. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter under there, and it just cooks everything underneath there, and it also sprouts everything that's underneath there. And so then when the freeze comes in the fall, you take the
gonna kill
cover
all
off,
those
it
weeds.
freezes all of those weeds because they're all young shoots and everything. And so you're getting rid of a lot of the weed seeds that are in there. You're getting rid of a lot of the diseases and the insects to carry over.
That makes sense.
Most important, don't leave any of the debris around an apple tree or raspberry, tomato plant. Debris is very bad because if it has any infection, a small disease on it, that will spread and go right up into the plant, and it'll go into the soil sometimes, and the next year when you plant it just repeats itself over and over. If you're going to compost it for a year before you reutilize it. Okay, don't put it aside and then rake it right back onto the garden, because it doesn't work that way. You're not getting rid of anything. You're not giving it time to, in the compost pile, to actually heat up and burn away those diseases and get rid of the bad insects and invite good insects in. This is the time to do a soil analysis. Check your soil, take it down, send it off, have it analyzed, get it back, and find out what it is you're lacking in the soil and make the amendments now.
No, I think, I was
important.
just going to say, because it seems to me, excuse me.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, that you had said that the blossom end rot on your tomatoes
You don't
was
ever listen to
caused
me.
by-
What are you talking about?
Absolutely did listen to you.
okay.
That is caused by a unbalance of pH in the soil, but that you can't like put lime down right now to treat your blossom end rot on your tomatoes. It has to be
Right.
done at a different time. Is this that time?
This is one of those times, and this is probably the time for your tomatoes for next year. This
Okay.
is the time right now. But don't overdo it.
Oh, is that so?
You want to check, yeah, it's contagious, I guess. You want to check your pH and know how much you should apply to raise the pH to the proper level for growing your vegetables. Vegetables are different demands than, say, would be a lawn or whatever. So it's a really good idea to take that soil sample, send it off, pay the few bucks, whatever it is, and get a proper soil sample too.
And I'm assuming this is why you had me go out and draw a diagram of my garden so that we knew exactly where everything had been planted this year, so that when you did these changes and rearranged our garden for next year, that you would know exactly what had been planted where and where we were going to plant next time.
Yeah, because you do not want to duplicate because of the carryover diseases and insects. Now, I have talked to people that swear that they have for 25, 30 years grown tomatoes in the exact same place and that their tomatoes do fine. They do wonderful. Perhaps they do. If you grew resistant varieties that are extremely resistant, and there are a few on the market that Bonnie Best is one of them that is resistant to just about every disease there is. There's a Better Boy, the new hybrid Better Boy. There's 2 or 3 other ones that you could possibly grow in the same soil over and over and over again, but they would grow better in another location. Now, one of the problems is you don't have enough bees. And I really want you to try this next year. I want you to get a round paintbrush that has very small bristles, real soft bristles.
Soft, okay, tiny.
And I
brush.
want you to go from blossom to blossom to blossom on one of your tomato plants. Not all of them, just one.
See
just
how
one
that
tomato
works.
plant. And do it, if you can, do it on just one vine of cucumber. And you will see an increase of 30 to 50% in your tomato production and in your the production of your cucumbers. In China, they had a major collapse of the bee hives. Their bees were, they had been using way too many chemicals on all of their orchards, and they rely on these orchards to produce for entire villages. And their only solution, they figured out what the problem was, and their only solution was to have people of the village go individually and pollinate at the right time,
Wow.
because as soon as the pollen's washed off, it's no longer. And they had to pick people that were lighter, and of course they're small anyway, but lighter, so that they didn't break the branches, so that they could crawl out and pollinate each and every blossom.
Be careful what you say about the size of people of other nationality. You'll be making a national apology.
They were they were picking the smaller of the smaller.
Oh my gosh.
So, well, I'm sorry. That's because they didn't want to break the branches. Listen to you. Amazon over here talking.
Okay.
She's from somewhere out in the jungle. I don't know where that
Fine.
comes from.
All right. So,
But-
all right, next. All right, I have a question from
Yeah, go right
somebody
ahead.
who says, somebody gave me the styrofoam winter plant covers. What do I use them on and how? And I think I've seen them. They're like a pyramid type thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I should tell everybody what this is all about or not.
All right, you skip it.
No.
Okay.
Okay. You know the rings that you get in your yard in the spring?
Rings.
Yeah, you know, like they're burnt rings. They're circles in your yard. You never seen those?
No.
Okay, they're called fairy rings. And these were originally designed and built for fairy houses so that the fairies would have something to stay in the wintertime.
What in the hell are you talking about?
Fairy houses. Oh, you're talking about, there was another use for them
I
too.
don't think they have any fairy houses in this town.
You don't think so? Oh. There was another use for them. They used them to cover roses. Now, this used to be a big deal because roses had a very, very weak root. And the root structure of the rose was so delicate, the upper part of the rose was so delicate, that they would prune their hybrid roses because these things took a tremendous amount of attention, and you really had to be diligent about how you fertilized and how you sprayed and how you pruned, how you even cut the blossoms off and the whole 9 yards. You would prune the rose back to a dimension of about like this, and then you would put this cone over the top to protect it from the severe winter cold. And that was all over town. There would be hundreds of them. When I had the nursery up there, we used to order in literally hundreds every fall, and they were used to cover hybrid tea roses.
Okay.
Now, if you really want to have a nuisance, buy a rose on a standard. A tree rose,
I
they
used to
call
do
them.
the tea roses in Florida, actually,
Oh,
and
those
they
are
are
nuisance.
they need constant attention and pruning and treatment, and yes, they are.
A
But
tree
they're beautiful
rose.
roses.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful. A tree rose, root structure's down here. You got a stem that comes up and there's a ball on top. Okay, it's a topiary type thing. In the wintertime, you dig up half of the roots.
Oh boy.
You tip the rose over, dig a trench, and put it down in the trench. Cover it up with dirt or mulch, and insulate it with some straw. Now in the spring, you tip it back up. You put the roots back in. Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to do that once. I'm not into high maintenance plants. We put out gladiolus. They are not supposed to return. It says to put a gladiola bulb in at 8 inches deep. Over the years, I've experimented.
Oh, the glads were beautiful.
I've gone down to 10 and then to 12 and then to 14. I have found that 14 inches down and with mulch on the top, these glads will come back for about 5 years. I don't have to replant them. They're gorgeous for 5 years. Got them down at the corner of Yarians there, all
we've
three
got
corners.
some in our yard,
They
too.
bloomed and bloomed and bloomed gangbusters. People even cut them, and they still kept blooming. We had quite a collection down there. Now the problem with gladiolus is their bloom season is not terribly long, but they are just fabulous. But plant them deeper, and you don't have to dig them up. Daffodils, by the way, do naturalize. And that's what you're looking for when you plant something. Well, that's what I'm looking for. I want something that's going to get more and more and more and more and more and more and more. Keep spreading. Okay, so plant daffodils, plant them in their appropriate place, put the bone meal in them, give them a shaker of baby powder, and you'll be amazed. Every year you get more and more of the daffodils. They're gorgeous.
So these styrofoam things, should he just put them out on large garbage day or something?
No, they actually are really good in the spring for covering your tomatoes.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you something about tomatoes. If you put a tomato plant in too early and the ground is cold, it's not going to grow. We put them in. I've done it. They just sit there, or they rot, or they're just terrible. If you warm the ground up, heat the ground up with hot water, we dig the hole, pour hot water in there, and put in fish emulsion so that it'll heat up the ground. plant the tomato, then use the styrofoam cover to keep the heat in and take it off during the daytime so the plant can get sun. Sounds like a lot of work.
I know,
But you will
I'm just
be the one
waiting.
to get the first tomato
Wow.
in your area. So they do have a use. Yeah, you can use them to cover any delicate plant, but there's really only a couple that you'd want to do that to.
Okay, now I wanted to ask you about our berries. This is my question. We had raspberries like crazy this year, but the blackberries in the backyard, they were a few, but they were not as abundant as they have been in the years past. They didn't do so well, but the raspberries were just absolutely amazing. Now, what happened?
It depends on variety. Raspberries, there are northern varieties. There are varieties that are recommended for in Michigan, for example, upstate Michigan. Even Canada has varieties that are recommended for there. Soil condition, environmental conditions, global warming is changing things a little bit. The variety that I have planted of raspberries is one that it will grow well in New England, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, like that. So it is the hardier variety. The blackberries, on the other hand, are borderline right here where we are. I wanted vineless, thornless, and I wanted the great big ones. They're as big as your thumb.
Yes, they are.
But they are not as hardy as far as fruit production unless you cover them and protect
here
them
we go.
from the severe cold. But last winter was a rare.
It was. It
Rare
was as
exception.
cold here as it was in New England. We had below zero temperatures.
yeah.
We missed
For
most of it. We
weeks
were up
and
there,
weeks.
but
we stayed in New Hampshire because of the health issues, but her son's struggles and battles, and which he won, and so we were in New England. But I understand that it was the best duck and goose hunting season that friends of mine that do that sort of thing have experienced in years and years and years. Because when it starts freezing to the north and all of the waterways freeze over, the geese and the ducks keep moving south, and giant flocks. One winter in particular, it was a very, very cold winter, and I was only able to go out in my backyard hunting. I just didn't have the health to go too much further. So I decided to goose hunt. And it was my first experience of goose hunting, but it wasn't my first experience of going out in the woods and videoing. So I invited my beautiful wife and my son to come out and join me. I said, there's geese flying over everywhere. So I went and I got my goose permit, and I talked to a guy, and I said, what do I use for shells? And he told me what to use for shells, and what do I use for a choke, what this is all about. I was all excited. And I get back there, and I'm laying in the frozen ground. I've got a sheet over the top of me, and I'm laying down, and the geese come over. And my wife is videoing. Bang, bang, bang.
they all just kept right on flying.
3 boxes of shells later, they're laughing so hard that the geese are actually starting to waver. I think they were laughing as well. I never got a feather.
That was
So
pretty funny.
I decided this is not good. So I went and talked to an old goose hunter, and I said, hey, somebody's told me wrong. You're using the wrong choke. You got the wrong shells. So he straightened me out with all that stuff. Yeah, what are you aiming at the goose for? You aim way out in front of the goose. So he straightened me out. Well, then I came back and I practiced, and we used some clay pigeons and so forth. So then I go out and I'm all excited. I get excited about goose hunting. And you're only allowed 2 geese. So thankfully, I had short-shelled myself, because when the geese came over the first time, I had shot and missed, and I didn't put another shell in. They were too high. The next ones that came over, bang, bang, I got 2 geese on the ground.
Oh boy, so
And let me tell you, I was some excited. Wow.
It
was I
took you
excited.
long enough.
3 boxes of shells, I never hit a goose. Never,
That was
not a
pretty
feather.
funny.
But I cooked goose here just about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, the ones we
Yeah.
got, Forrest and I got in
Been
the
in the
spring.
freezer, yeah.
I cooked them for a good friend of mine, and a bunch of other friends were down, and I served it to them, and they absolutely would not believe that was not roast beef. And I promise you it was goose.
You think it's bird because it's a goose, but it's actually like a red meat.
It is not greasy. It is not fat. It is full of protein. It is absolutely delicious. Even if it's an old goose, you do the same thing you would with an old chicken, You just cook it longer. That's all you do. You guys don't even know what old chickens are, but you just cook it longer, and especially in a crock pot. Oh, it's fantastic. But with wild game, if you have anybody that you're serving wild game to, I really hope that you've trimmed the meat properly, that there's not a bunch of bloodshot hanging around. Do your job and do it right. You're the person that's getting the wild game, so protect the meat the second that you harvest this animal, whatever it happens to be. Protect the meat, get it where you can process it properly at the right temperature, let it age if it's supposed to. And when you get ready to cook it, boil it first. Take all the water that you boil it in, dump that off, and then go about your cooking however it is you're going to do it. Because that alone will take out most of anybody's complaints about wild taste or tacky flavor or any of that stuff. And I have served many wild game all the way down. I've never done skunk. I've done, I've never tried it. My uncle used to.
Well, you can tell it's fall because this just went from a gardening show to a hunting show, wild game.
My brother got picked for one of the last moose hunts in New Hampshire.
Yay!
And we're gonna.
He's gonna go help him try and get a moose.
Well, at least I hope I am. If I can get this ticker straightened out.
Yeah, we'll get it straightened out.
Good. What else you got?
Are you ready for some more questions?
Yep.
All right, I've got.
You said something about. Oh, did I do the purple thing yet?
I don't know.
That's allium.
Did the purple thing?
Yep.
Oh, another question about the tulips. So she planted them 5 years ago, but each year they come back less and less. I think it is the squirrels. Is that what's going on?
Nah, it's tulips. Don't do that.
All right, never mind. Tulips, don't do that. He doesn't like tulips.
Tulips do not increase. They do not multiply. Okay, now I don't know why, because obviously they multiply in Holland, so why don't they multiply over here?
Why?
I really haven't spent much time trying to figure out tulips. There was a year, now I did a horrendous amount of landscape at the new Indianapolis Zoo. And there was a donation made that they wanted tulips planted, and it was in the thousands, tens of thousands actually.
Well, they're a beautiful display. They really are.
We planted tulips till the cows came home, and they were gorgeous the next spring. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. The following spring, the second year of this tulip bed, we fertilized them. They were not that great. And I have had that same experience, and I really have never slowed down long enough. I wish somebody would call me and tell me. To figure out what I'm doing wrong with tulips, because I'm not crazy about them. I love daffodils and the hyacinths and the crocus and the allium. Allium's one of my favorites. And if you haven't grown allium, it is a sight to see when they bloom. It really is.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a question. I've noticed my neighbor did not have his shrubs trimmed this summer. Did he miss the boat, or is there some reason for this?
It was a very hard winter. We had a drought before that. We've experienced 2 or 3 droughts. The plants have taken a hard hit, and it probably is not a bad idea to let them go to full foliage, let them regenerate themselves, because only through photosynthesis, only through all of this foliage can they regenerate and restore themselves, okay? Because we tend to take away everything that they would rebuild with. We trim it off, we rake it up, we haul it off. If the leaves fall, we rake them up, we haul them off. We don't let the plant regenerate. Whenever I trim, doesn't matter what I trim, I always fertilize. If I'm trimming a substantial sized tree, I still fertilize the tree. Now that sounds counterintuitive that I would trim something and then fertilize it, and I'm doing it just for the purpose of more growth so I can trim again. That's not true. I'm doing it because I'm taking away nutrients and to replenish the ability of that plant to heal itself and regenerate itself. So I've got to put fertilizer down to compensate for that, and you really should, every time you prune, put fertilizer down. The question was, why have people left it this long? I'd have to look individually at why. I know I have on a couple of places that we trim, and we do very few, but we have done some trimming, and we've avoided it this year altogether. We're going to do it next year. We're going to let the plant regenerate. Doesn't look that bad. We have a caller. Go ahead. You're on the line with a garden doctor. What can we do for you? Hey, how you doing?
Yes, I have this moonflower that a really close friend of mine gave me from Jersey Shore. And I'd like to plant it in my yard.
Yeah.
I want to know if I can plant it where there's lots of sun or shade.
Where did it grow in Jersey Shore? Was it in the sun at Jersey Shore?
I don't know. I don't live there.
I'll bet it was.
Yeah, I bet it was. The plant that we have that came from Jersey Shore is growing in a semi-shade. It's also growing in about 2/3 shade, and it's growing out in the front,
Yep,
which would
it
be
gets
all
morning
morning
light
sun.
and-
So,
yep.
but we did put it one time in a full sun location. This thing reseeds itself everywhere.
Yeah, it puts out these little spiky pods that are full of seeds.
And
That's
it's
the one.
actually called a angel trumpet. We looked it up, researched it a little bit, and it comes in more than one color, but this particular
Oh,
one
it's beautiful.
Beautiful, white
and
trumpet.
fragrant.
Gorgeous.
Oh, they smell so good.
And she's got them spread all the way around the house, and it's just a matter of collecting the seed. But as far as, I think more important is the soil. We had trouble growing it in the regular soil. It did very, very well in a sandy soil.
Yes, it did.
Likes the sandy soil.
And that's the environment it came from. And if I remember right, the original pod that I brought home was facing the ocean. So it was on the facing east. There was a fence behind it, so it was getting morning light, midday light, but not much direct hot afternoon light. So that would be about the same
And
environment.
probably in sandy soil.
Yep, and it was definitely in sandy soil. So that's where I would definitely have mine and where it should be.
Well,
and
I'll be
probably
there.
likes lots of water too.
Yeah, probably does. And maybe a shot of vodka now and then.
Yes.
Where do you get sandy soil from?
Well, you can mix your own. You can add sand to most of the soils around here, especially a clay soil. If your soil is heavy in clay, you want to mix sand in it. Sand is one of the ingredients bringing you from clay to loam to a good rich soil. So, and you can pick up sand in a bag or by the basket or along the beach or. Well, you probably better not do that along the beach.
No, probably
But you
not.
go along
Down
the
by the
riverbank.
river.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
get
you
some
go.
down by the riverbank.
That's from Jersey Shore I can use.
Yeah, there you go.
There
and
you go.
If you go back out there and bring it back a handful at a time.
I do. I have a lot of sand that I brought back with me.
Just take me with you if you go.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much for calling. And that plant is absolutely beautiful.
It is.
And it blooms later in the season. I'm not sure that
I
may
think
be,
I got a late start
I
on,
think you got a late
on the
start.
seedlings,
yeah, on the
this year.
Yeah. But boy, it is gorgeous, and it's just now coming on.
I bloomed about September last year.
You doing what?
Nothing. Ours bloomed about September last year.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it blooming through until September?
I think it was.
Was it blooming through? I didn't remember if it was blooming late in the season last year or not. But it's a gorgeous plant. It's something that people should include in their garden. It's just as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than a mum this time of the year. And
Collect
it's unique.
those spiky things. That's where all the seeds are. That's what I started some of the seedlings from. Just collect one of those.
Well,
and
just
it's
give her-
100 seeds in there.
Yeah, there's a bunch. And it'll reseed itself. They said it's not hardy for this area,
We
but
had
it
one
is.
come up by itself.
Yeah.
I did not plant that one
No,
this year.
it reseeded itself in a couple of the beds out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't pull the weeds out, if you let the weeds grow, you'll end up with some. Thanks a bunch for your call.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Oh, what a wonderful day. We have had, we've gone from high trauma in and out of the emergency room, came directly from the
Right into
doctor's
talking about
office,
flowers.
right into talking about flowers. We have another caller. You're on the with the Garden Doctor and Mrs. Garden Doctor. How can we help you?
I have a weeping cherry tree
Uh-huh.
that's bark has split this summer and it has gold sap rolling
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah, it probably has borers. The sap that is coming out is the lifeblood of the tree. It's like spruce gum, which when a spruce is injured, the little balls of gum come out that are actually used to be used for spruce gum, and it can be chewed, but it gets a little tacky. I've tried it myself, but that's not a good sign on a cherry tree, especially a weeping cherry tree. Now, the only treatment for borers is a product called Lindane. and you want to spray it when the foliage is gone off the tree. You spray the trunk. You want to take that sap off so that it can penetrate. The crack is possibly from the harsh winter that we had. And what happens is the sap is caught in the tree, and those trees are actually borderline as far as hardiness in this area. And the sap is caught in the tree, and when it freezes, it cracks on the side normally where the sun is reflected, like on the south side of a tree. Is normally where you get that crack, because it freezes and then the sun reflects off the snow, heats it back up, and you get the split. But to prevent that this year, if it looks like the only problem is the borers, you could probably treat it with the Lindane, get rid of the borers, and then use a tree wrap on it. You don't have to paint over the scar with tar or anything, but there's a wrap, and it's kind of a cardboard looking thing, and it has tar in it, and you just wrap the tree. Now what that does is it protects that tree from just what has happened, that cracking thing, and it allows the tree to heal. You leave that on there for about 2 or 3 years, tape the top and the bottom so that it can expand, and then in about 2 years it'll kind of rot away and you peel it off, and most of that should be healed. However, do you know about how old this weeping cherry is?
Probably 8 to 10 years old.
Well, you should get some life out of it then. They usually last for about 20 years. 15 to 20 years is about the maximum you get. Now, you can expand that life expectancy by not allowing any suckers to come out and go up. Only allow it to weep down. Don't let it go up, because then it saps the life out of it. And further, you want to thin out the branches. As it grows, it'll try to grow thick, and the inside will kind of die out. You want to thin that out, and it likes to be treated with Lindane, and that is to control the borers. The other things that are as susceptible, a weeping cherry, anything in the peach family, most of the soft fruits, not apple trees, they're a harder fruit, but peach and plum and apricot, those are very susceptible to borers, and they get almost the same looking thing. But usually when you see the gum, in there somewhere is a borer, and you can't get in through that gum to get to the borer. So you have to use the Lindane. If you have children, be very careful with that product Lindane, because it penetrates through bark into the tree to kill the borer. It'll go right through your skin, right into your veins, arteries, and bones. It's a penetrating insecticide. It's very effective at what it does, but treat it as a poison and a toxin. Make sure you put it up and lock it down.
Okay.
All right? Any other
Okay.
questions?
Thanks. No, I think that's it. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for that question, because there weeping cherries, there used to be, well, heck, I must have planted 35 or 40 of them in Connersville, and there's only, I think, 3 of those that I planted that are still around, because most of these were in the early 80s. And they are a beautiful tree, but they do get large. Don't put them right up against your house. Don't put them right up against your sidewalk. They got to have some room. About 15 foot from the tree to the outside perimeter on a full-size weeping cherry. Now, there are more dwarf weeping cherries. There's the white fountain. That's a much more compact. And there are some fantastic weeping jades and miniature weeping jades that weep only on one side. So they are good for putting against a building or sidewalk or close to a foundation. But be aware of the ultimate size of whatever it is you're buying, because that's what you're going to be dealing with unless you want to trim it constantly.
Well, we don't want to be doing that.
We don't want to do that.
Don't
no,
have
no.
more work for you to do.
I stick them in and let them go.
Well, speaking of more work for you to do, I have a question here. Can I move a tree this time of the year?
Oh, yes. This is the time of the year to move a tree.
Okay.
If you have the time to plan ahead, and I would prune the roots in the spring, let the new root structure grow all summer, and then dig it in the fall. the tree is here, and the root structure will grow out this far. If you come in and sever that root structure here, closer to the trunk, then a new root ball will form, all little fiber roots and little tiny roots holding this soil together. And as you dig, then you have all of this support system to go with you.
Without just cutting it off from all of its roots.
And
Okay.
hoping that will regrow. So if you can, if you have the time and you're not picking too big of a tree, I had a guy try to move trees, out of the woods with a backhoe. It's better to go small because they'll go through shock, and they won't even grow anyway. But you want to, if you're digging a tree that's wild, you want to stay under the 2-inch.
Oh,
if you
wow,
can
that's
put your
small?
yeah.
Okay.
Really, I don't like to dig anything that's much bigger than what I can put my fingers around. So, if you can prune the roots to a controllable size in the spring, let it regrow, then dig just outside of that, you're going to have amazing luck. It'll transplant beautifully. It won't go through shock. And always stake your trees. I see trees planted all over town with no stakes. I don't understand that. And they're all tipping like this. That's not what they're supposed to do. That's windswept. That's like
It's
you
the
see
new
along
style,
the ocean. It's ridiculous. You beautiful tree, and you don't stake it. Don't take the time to just put one stake across like that. The tree is here, one stake across, and that'll keep it from going in all directions, and it also protects people from getting up too close. And for heaven's sake, if this is a tree where it's going to have traffic around it, put these new mats around. Oh, are those things fantastic.
They look like mulch, but they're shredded rubber.
Shredded rubber. They got
cool.
a slit in them. They slide
Yeah.
around. They're easy to. They just drop them in and kind of cut the soil, let them drop in.
Yep, and it looks just like
Permanent.
mulch. No
and
weeds.
you don't have to weed up against it. You don't have to mow up against it.
Now, does that stop water from getting down to
No,
it
it
or
does
anything?
not,
Okay.
because it is permeable. The water can go through
Okay.
that, but the water is not as necessary anyway up in that area.
Oh, okay. So just around it is good enough. Then
You're right, and even some of them, some of the new ones, when you put the tree out, this lower part is what holds the water bag. Have you seen those water bags?
Yes, I have
Great
seen
big old
that, yeah.
trash bag looking thing. They hook it on the tree, fill it with water, and
It's like an IV bag for
yeah,
your
during
tree.
the course of the week, whatever, it slowly oozes out the water. It's great, fantastic system, and it sets right on this thing. So, it's a great system. But stake the tree. Don't You've cut all the roots, all of this tree's ability to hold itself against the wind, and you stick it in. And,
Windswept? That's
well, these trees are looks ridiculous.
okay. What else you
So
got
you can't
going
move
on?
a tree right now, but I would prefer that you root prune it in the spring and then move it.
All right. We did say today's the first day of fall, isn't it? Didn't we? Did we? Today's the first official day
Yes.
of fall.
I
tell you what,
love
it
the fall.
feels like it out there.
Oh, yeah,
Doesn't
it did about a week ago.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. What about predictions for the winter? Now, I've heard people say, oh, well, we're going to have this kind of winter. The almanac says, I don't know exactly I don't know, but I have a prediction for this show for next year. We're going to have a stool that does not kill my ass after an hour. I'm making a prediction right now. Wow.
I'm going to buy my wife a pad.
Woo, that is some hard
Well,
stuff.
maybe you'll be wearing Depends by then.
Thanks a lot.
Anyway.
All right, yeah. So
Yes,
Georgette
prediction for the winter.
said-
I really think that it's going to be a pretty strong winter.
That's what Georgette
However,
said. She saw 2 solid black woolly worms, and apparently this is an omen. What does it mean?
there's a lot of omens. There's a lot of things, and I wish you would give us a call and
Tell
we haven't
us
got
your
much left.
prediction
Tell us
or
what
what
your
it means.
prediction is, because people are using persimmon nuts and they go out and they oh my gosh, looky here, look at this.
Right, give me
Magic.
a pillow. Sheesh.
My wife used
This
to have
thing's hard as a rock.
considerable cushion back there, but she's losing
Thanks
it.
a lot.
She's losing it back. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Can you
wow,
sit on that?
that's awesome.
Look at this.
Whew.
Makes her like 3 inches
Oh,
taller.
well, we have 5 minutes to go. You gotta figure it's 55 minutes. I've been sitting on this thing hard as a rock, and you're fidgeting too. So I know.
Deservedly so, because, and I want to say thanks to the Swain family for loaning me your canoe.
Yes, we had a lot
Thank
of
you
fun
very,
with
very
that.
much. We paddled up and down, which I took her out fishing for her birthday, which is what
almost
she wanted to
drowned.
do. She almost drowned me. Flipped the canoe, flipped it over again, come right side up.
But I didn't lose the fish.
She didn't lose the
That's
fish.
right, big walleye.
Save the fish.
Like this.
Honey, swim back to the boat. I got the fish.
I got the fish. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, honey.
Hey,
I didn't
told you to
she
grab
didn't throw
onto
me
the
a pillow.
boat.
Oh,
Grab
no
onto
cushion,
the
no
boat.
life preserver, no. But we made it. We survived, and the canoe survived, and
The
actually,
fish got ate.
and we saved the fish too. We have a
Absolutely.
lovely picture of that.
Yes.
And yeah, it's my prediction is for this winter though that it will be cold,
Cold.
but not as bitter as the last one.
Very good, honey. It's going to be cold.
There will be more snow than
Oh, yeah?
average,
All
I
right.
think. I think the moisture level is going to continue. This jet stream is just not moving as far as the moisture is coming up and
The
colliding.
jet stream is way different than what it used
Oh,
to be.
everything
it
is
seems
different
like.
with that
it
thing.
dips and does this.
Yeah,
and
it's just not right. It's coming straight out of the Gulf of Alaska, and it comes down and picks up the moisture and then slams the Rockies, and nothing. There's big areas of California that get nothing. There's big areas of Arizona and Texas get nothing. And then all of a sudden it dumps 10 inches over and over again in the same location because things are just not right. It just ain't right.
You're a hand talker.
I know. But
Yeah, that-
hopefully we have another good goose season
What
though, because
did you? I never did get what the almanac says for this year. Have you heard anybody
I
say what
don't
the
know. I think the
Farmer's
almanac-
tells us?
are you allowed to open it before?
I don't know.
I
We
think
should-
today you can open it.
I guess if I'd
officially.
have had time to prepare for the show, I would have Googled it. I'm very sorry. I did not get a prediction. It's been
We absolutely, but
really
we never,
crazy.
I don't know what can we do for, we got a whole hour to kill here. What are we
What?
going to do for an hour?
What?
So-
No, 5 minutes.
Oh, we have 5
honey.
minutes?
We got 5 minutes.
we can do that.
Okay, we can
We have
definitely
not
do
even
that.
got through all of the questions, so
No,
yeah.
I still have a list. I'm
Yeah,
trying
well,
to.
what do you got?
I've heard you talk about candling pine and
Oh.
spruce. I asked my tree trimmer, and he did not know what I was talking about. Can you explain?
Yeah, and I know who left me that message too.
Aha, I bet you do.
And they can call it anything they want to. Okay, a tree, especially a pine or a spruce, grows with a center leader and then it forks out. And there's a little candle-looking thing that is in the middle of the new growth in the spring. The old timers used to go out and break that center off, and that was called candling. And it actually looks like a candle if you look at a Scotch pine or the pines that are in the
Oh, that's
paintings and
cool.
stuff.
Okay.
So you break out that centerpiece, and that's called candling. Now, when it comes to pruning, candling, you can go back and candle in the center of the fork. You go back and you candle 1 year growth, 2 year growth, 3 year growth, 4 year growth, whatever. And if you prune in that fashion, the tree does not look like it was sheared. And it
okay.
won't grow artificially. It'll just grow tighter, denser, and naturally. And the most important thing is to be progressive. The bottom is always wider and it's always narrower as you go up. So we generally try to start at the top and prune at the top first, then you can come out. It's very difficult to prune at the bottom first and then try to go in. Sometimes you get in too far. You can't prune beyond the green on an evergreen. You go in as far as you can and it will look very, very natural. As a matter of fact, we have a tree that I'm hoping my health will hold up long enough for me to prune a tree and dig a tree and do a video so that I can show the process of pruning, because it is a very important
Don't
thing
worry,
to
we
learn.
are definitely going to get you back on the ball here.
Oh,
with
I
it.
got to get back to the top of that
And one
mountain.
thing we've got to say about blood pressure. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about having high blood pressure, and they call it the silent killer for a reason, because most people never have any symptoms. And unless you go to your doctor regularly and have your blood pressure checked, you may not even know that you have it. And it can cause all kinds of problems. Obviously, it leads to heart disease. It can, plaque buildup. It can cause problems with your kidneys, all kinds of things if left untreated. Luckily, both of us had very severe symptoms when our blood pressure started to increase.
Hers
I
was
had
horrendous.
horrendous headaches. They were terrible, terrible headaches, which I'm told is very unusual. People have been known to have very high blood pressure and never have a symptom. His
I encourage
symptoms
you to
totally different.
check your blood pressure
Please
and
do.
check a friend's blood pressure.
Yes.
Make them sit down, tell them to shut up for a few
It's
minutes,
the silent killer.
put it on
so-
there and test them.
and
if
totally treatable. So,
Yeah, it's absolutely treatable. And if you find that it's a little high, check it again. And if it's still a little high, check it again. And if it's high 3 times, go see somebody.
That's right.
Because it can take you out.
Yes, and make you feel really bad too. So
Yes, and we want everybody that's out there in TV land to be there the next time we do this show.
Yes, and we
hopefully
will be
us
here
to be
too.
on this side.
And we will definitely be more prepared. We not put as much into it as we
made
usually like to.
Three
but we're
trips.
here.
Thank you very much for watching, and we appreciate all your prayers. And,
Thank you.
And we send them right back to you. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
The Garden Doctor.